I am going live on Facebook. I don't know if I'm live on Facebook yet, but if you see me, say hey. It appears that I'm live. But anyway, it's been a minute, y'all. It's been a minute. And if you see me looking in 3 different places, that's because I'm in 5 different places. So I'm trying to manage it all. But with that being said, I want to come in and greet you all. Hey, how you doing, Cat Cam? But I want to step in and share a brief word with you all. Now, when I say brief, sometimes I only plan on about 15 minutes and then it goes on a little bit longer. If it goes on a little bit longer, then I promise you, you're going to get something good out of it. But here's what I want to share with you all. And if you're popping on Facebook, say hey. If you're coming on Instagram or TikTok, you guys know I answer questions from all the different places, and so it may look a little scattered, but know that. Good morning, Rachel. Rachel, is that it? Good morning. So anyway, I want to talk about trust in the process. So over the course of the last couple of weeks, I've been moving some things around, and I found this. Now, for some of you, this may mean nothing, right? I found this, but this was some notes that I had taken for myself. So when I watch a sermon or when there's something I want to remember, I take notes like this. So this is actually a photocopy of something that came out of my notebook. And in it says, but if not. It was Daniel 3:18. And I remember writing this, and I remember the season that I was in. The season that I was in was when I was searching for my breakthrough. So for those of you who don't know me, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Rhonda Gipson-Willis. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm a certified coach. But in this season, most people know me as the woman who is 52 years old and going through a divorce after nearly 30 years together. Like we are the 30th anniversary of the day we met actually was a couple of weeks ago. Um, and so that's kind of how that's become my claim to fame. And that's been the thing that God has really been using to elevate my voice with and allow me to help other women who are going through this transition. But what's happened is a lot of people see me at this end or at this part of my journey that looks really good, right? It looks really good. You see me traveling, you see me in peace, you see me healing, you see the healing process, you see the end result of a lot of what I did during the last year and a half. And so over the course of the last year and a half, um, I was really intentional about my healing. So here's the thing, the short of it, and someone just asked me this question yesterday. So I did it Ask Me Anything. I did it Ask Me Anything as I was on a flight. I was on a flight yesterday. It was a 2-hour flight. And I said, I have 2 hours, so ask me anything. So someone asked me, how did you know? How did you know that your marriage had come to an end? And I said, to be honest, um, and this was a question that was asked inside of my Shift Queens group. So not everybody saw this response, but I said, to be honest, I knew that, it wasn't the relationship for me early on. Like I knew that we were incompatible. I knew that I wasn't getting what I needed. I knew I wasn't giving him what he needed. I knew that early on. Like when our children were young, I knew that early on. But just like a lot of people, I stayed in it because it was good enough, right? It was good enough. But I remember when it finally got to the point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. It was after we had gone through this really long extended trip, which my sister lovingly refers to as the closeout tour, right? The closeout tour. We had done this 3-week road trip. And during this 3-week road trip, we had some really deep conversations where we really talked about what it was that we wanted um, individually, what we wanted from each other. Um, and it was just like, this isn't it. This isn't it, right? But prior to that, like a week before my 50th birthday, I turned 50 in 2020, right? So you guys remember the pandemic year. I turned 50, and it was July of that year. And I said to him, and I asked him a question. I said, you ever thought that we might be better as friends? And I'll never forget. I never forget, right? IG, he folded his arms like this. To the 16 of you on IG, I see you. To the 125 of you on TikTok, I see you. He folded his arms like this and he said, absolutely. To the question of, do you think we'd ever be better as friends? And in my mind, I was thinking, I don't want a better than friends type of relationship where we kind of settle into that. And in that moment in July, I started thinking of there has to be more than this, right? I'd already known that there had to be more than this, but there has to be more than this. So um, by the time we got to the time that I actually left, I had already been knowing like we'd given it the old college tribe, we'd done those things, right? But what people didn't realize, and what people, the people on the interweb, particularly the people on Instagram, y'all Instagram folks, particularly the men, the Instagram men. Now, I have some really cool brothers who are coming on and saying, I know you primarily speak to women, but this is helping me too, right? The fact that you're sharing your journey is helping me too. But there's a lot of men who don't really understand that you can be the person who says, I think we should consider something else. You could be the person who initiates the breakthrough and still have pain behind it. It can still hurt as you're navigating through these new transitions. And so what a lot of people didn't see that during that time, right, when December 2020, when I decided to leave, like I left in a space of brokenness. I looked like someone said, you look like you were chiseled from the hands of God himself. I absolutely was. I absolutely was. Thank you, TikTok person. But what happened was, um, I too had to go and lean into my healing, right? And when I talk about healing, people they assume that I'm just healing from things that happened in my marriage, and that it has to be about a negative. Like I'm healing from abandonment issues. I'm healing from um, betraying myself. I'm healing from the times that I decided that it was okay to accept less. I'm healing from a lot of things from childhood, right? I'm healing from these things. And so as I go through this healing journey, and people want you to justify why you left, like someone commented, they said, you should only leave if he's doing something bad, like putting his hands on you. You should only leave if he's doing. I'm like, no, I get to leave if I decide to leave. Like we all get to leave. We decide to leave. But here's the thing about it, and I talk about trusting the process, right? That's what I call this. Trust the process. So I got a comment that says, you just left a month. Oh, just left a month ago after 28 years. Should have left at least 20 years ago. Listen, I was in that same place where I was like, we should have done this 20 years ago. Gwen comes in. Hey, Miss Gwen, you chose peace over principle. I absolutely did. Grace and peace this morning. Good word and good morning. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Good morning. How do you feel about? Okay, so you, sir, are going to be blocked. Let me see. How do I block these people? Because y'all, the people just come on with the foolishness. They come on with the foolishness. But I want to let me block you. Okay, so we'll go block him out. Here we go. Block. So one of the things that I had really had to do is I had to be intentional about my healing. So here's what people didn't understand, or what people fail to understand. And here's what I understood as a licensed therapist, as someone who has coached women through different transitions, as someone who, like, I've been a therapist for many, many years, and I've worked with a lot of people who have gone through healing. I recognize that there's more to healing than just riding out the time, just going, you know what, I'm just going to give it some time. Tanya says, peace is everything. Absolutely. Divorce after 30 years, peace is everything. There is more than just riding out the time. Like you really have to go back to the places where there is lack in you. You have to go back into places where you've allowed yourself to settle and challenge that version of you to rise. You have to lean into the pain of the dismantlement of everything that you've known for the last almost 30 years, right? And because I recognized that, I was intentional about my process. I was intentional about my process, right? I was intentional about the fact that I was not going to rush the process. I was intentional about the fact that I knew I was going to have to go through some really ugly moments. You need therapy to heal also. As a therapist who has a therapist or who had a therapist, I completely agree, Joseph. I completely agree, Joseph. I completely agree. And so that's what I want to speak to in terms of the time and the process, and what people are thinking is all that they need. You need more than just the time. You have to trust the process. You have to trust the process of leaning into your own healing. And what I find is sometimes people are in the process, but they're not invested in the process, and they absolutely don't trust the process. And so what does trust in the process look like for you? What does trust in the process look like for you? So for me, what it looked like is when I did this, right? When I wrote this, this was, I wish I put a date on this. My God, I did not put a date on this. But I was watching a sermon. I was watching a sermon, or maybe I was reading. I might have been reading the Bible. You know, when it goes to Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. I like to call them Abednego, right? When they were about to go into the furnace, right? They were about to go into the furnace, and the guy was like, um, they went in with a level of faith that I wanted to have. Like I wanted to have that fiery faith. And on here I wrote fiery faith, fiery faith. When you trust the process, what does it look like to have fiery faith? And I put 3:18, but if not, like I trust God to give me the outcome, right? So throughout my healing journey, I really had to lean into trusting God. But if not, if I don't get the outcome that I desire, I trust that God is going to give me what it was for me. What it was for me, what it was for me, what it looked like to trust the process. And at the time that I wrote this, I was struggling, y'all. I was in the depths of depression. I was gripped by anxiety. It was really difficult for me. And I decided I had to turn it over. Oh, something happened in my voice. I'm not crying, y'all. I had to decide that I had to be willing to turn it over. And turning it over meant that I had to trust the process. I didn't have to trust the process in a natural eyes, like what I see with myself. The process I had to trust was the process that God had me on to reveal who it was that I was to be in this journey. Like I had discovered that a lot of what I was doing was I was trying to outwork God. And what I found and what we'll find is you can't outwork God. Yes, Joseph, you have to be honest with yourself and your therapist. As a therapist, that's the thing. I have a lot of people who I'm looking at and I'm like, girl, you lying to yourself and you probably lying to me. But if you don't show up as your full you, if you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable, you will not get the help that you desire and that you need. And so I'm working with my therapist, right? A therapist, I made the commitment to trust the process and to show up authentically, to show up transparent with transparency, and to show up honest. We have to be honest with ourselves. So let me see. Here's some TikTok comments. Somebody said, this lady right here helped me tremendously in prayer. Bless you. So Lassler said, I left a gorgeous big home for an apartment. Couldn't be happier. My 1,000 square feet is all mine. Come on now. I'll tell you, there is so much peace. There's so much peace. When I went back or when I go back to the home that we shared, it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel the same. I used to have an emotional attachment to my home. I loved that house. I loved it. But I am enjoying where I'm at right now. Yes, a lot of trust. A card that was it for me. All right, then me too. Da, da, da. She is speaking wisdom. Thank you, thank you. And so here's the thing that you have to be willing to do. You have to be willing to trust. Hey, Michael. Hey, Michael and Roseanne. You have to be willing to trust the process. You have to be willing to trust, even if you don't see it, even if you don't understand it. You have to be willing to trust the process when you lean into your healing. Because here's the thing that healing will do. Sometimes your healing journey will blind you. The pain will blind you to the here and now. It will blind you, and it will say to you that you should back up out of this because this does not feel good. And so at the time that I wrote this, at the time that I leaned into this, in the time when I was doing this, was a time where my heart was broken. My heart was broken. I needed healing. I needed healing. I was fighting for it. I was begging God for it. I was in my prayer closet. And here's the thing. So I went and I gathered up some things from my old home, right? Which is now a house to me. It's no longer a home. I moved into my new home. And part of it was I took the boards that I used when I did my prayer closet. I'm going to be sharing that with you guys a little bit later, probably in my group. But I shared, I have my prayer requests. I have my different things that I wrote to myself when I was in that journey. And I look forward to going back and reading it. But I would share some of that with you because those are the days where I was going into my prayer closet 3 times a day and I was turning it over to God. People were saying to me, how do you let go and let God? You just say, you know what? I trust the process. I have my desire. I have my outcome. But if not, I still trust God on the other side of this. And it wasn't until I was able to really turn it over that I was able to see to see a peace that surpasses all understanding, that now I don't worry about things like I used to worry about things. I don't get caught up into what's happening with me or with other people, or what I don't understand might be happening in the next year or 6 months or tomorrow. I enjoy what's going on today, and I trust that where God has me is where I'm supposed to be. I trust that where God has me is where I'm supposed to be. Someone says, hi, how can I ever get in contact with you? So here's the thing. If you go to rhondagipsonwillis.com, the link is in the bio. I actually just opened up 3 spots on Friday. I typically don't see clients or anyone on Friday. I've opened up 3 coaching spots on Friday for people if they want to schedule. You go to rhondaletstalk.com. You get those spots. Once they're gone, they're gone. But that's how you get in contact with me. Schedule a one-on-one consult. And the thing about the consult is, what I love about them is I can meet with somebody one time and help give them a level of clarity that allows them to step into understanding and step into reminding them of who they are and how they're called to be, right? So Annette says, I'm still trying to get there. It's a process. You got to trust the process. So Teresa said, Teresa for Boston, I was in the 25 years with my due responsibility when I'm still having it been. I'm not sure what that means, but I have another comment here. How is your relationship? Fly Girl 36 on IG says, how is your relationship with your ex? My relationship with my ex is that we are cordial. We have conversations when we need to have conversations. We do not talk on a regular basis, right? But when we do talk, it's no longer contentious, right? And I'll say this. So someone asked me, am I Ask Me Anything yesterday? Somebody asked me if I reached out to him a lot when it first happened, and I didn't. I was gone for 5 months, and we talked maybe 3 times. And every time that we talked, I would find myself triggered. That's when I knew that I had to do my own work, because every time I talked to him, I was angry. Every time I talked to him, I was hurt. Every time I talked to him, there was something that would happen, and I would go from 0 to 100. And I knew I had to sit back and do my work. Now, that didn't mean that, he didn't have some culpability in whatever was going on. That didn't mean that, he gets off scotch-free. But that also meant that I had to take responsibility for my healing, because nobody else was going to take responsibility for it. And so in the beginning, no, we didn't. We talked 3 times in 5 months. The 5 months I was gone, we talked 3 times. Each time it didn't end well. And then I got to a point where once I got into my healing, right, again, I'm owning my stuff. I'm doing my healing. I'm putting myself in my process. That has nothing to do with anybody else. Here's the thing that we tend to do. We tend to put too much responsibility on somebody else to do the work so they can heal us, right? We tend to put too much responsibility on somebody else to do the work so that they can heal us, which is covered. I covered in my ebook. I did an ebook, healebook.com, and I talk about how the hurt and the things that they did might not have been your fault, but it's not your responsibility to heal from that. It's not fair. It's not right, but it's okay, right? It's not right, but it's okay. And so when I took responsibility for my stuff, I had to take responsibility for my misdeeds. I had to take responsibility for my toxic behaviors in the relationship. I had to take responsibility for the times that I didn't show up the way that I was supposed to. I took responsibility for the actions that I did that led to the demise of my relationship, right? My marriage, because I couldn't just put it on him. It wasn't all his fault. And if I put it on him, that meant that I had to rely on him to fix it. You can't rely on other people to fix you. And so I had to go and I had to do my own work. And so it wasn't until we had a moment where I basically called a truce. I said, look, let's talk. We can call it a come to Jesus. It was a good come to Jesus type of moment. I said, I think we need to talk. And when we had that conversation, I said, you don't have to say a word, because I'm just here to own my shit. I'm here to say, we could have been good. Like, this shit could have worked. We could have been good. Here's why it didn't work. Here's what I did. I don't need for you to own up to anything that you did. Here's my apology for what I did. I wish you well. I wish you nothing but the best. Like, we're not going back to that. But it wasn't, I had to take responsibility as part of my process. And I think for a lot of people, particularly people who work with me, people who coach with me, one of the first things we have to talk about is forgiveness and ownership. And do you forgive yourself enough? Do you forgive you enough for what you endured, what you went through, what you did Do you forgive yourself for the ways that you betrayed yourself? And until you allow yourself to forgive yourself and forgive whomever you believe wronged you, you will stay stuck in this cycle of victimhood that does not allow you to heal. You cannot heal as a victim. You have to heal when you take responsibility and accountability, and as a victor, as someone who takes ownership for your life. Otherwise, you will be the perpetual victim in your own life, in the story of your life. So you have to decide, trust the process. So here we have, I had to stop looking for closure. Yes, Miss Gwen. Miss Gwen said I had to stop looking for closure. Looking for closure will get you messed up because you're looking for somebody else to do this magical thing that makes you feel better. And oftentimes, the thing that we think is the thing that's going to give us closure is not the thing that gives you closure. You are setting yourself up. You know what closure should be? Your closure should be peace. Your closure should be letting it go. My closure came when I said, I release it. That's my closure. So Dr. Moses John Rodrigue, is that it? Breakthrough Coach Rhonda, hi there. It's my first time here. I'm a consultant and psychotherapist. Hey there. I too am I'm a therapist. I'm not a psychotherapist. And a consultant. We should probably connect at some point. All right. So Teresa said, we need to have conversations on me not having a baby, but I don't know how to get over it. Oh, okay. So yeah, you might want to, that sounds like a deep dive. So yes, me too. In an 18-year marriage, we don't own anything together. I married a man with mama issues. All right. I'm divorcing my husband a second time in 35 years. I can't do the misery anymore. Retreat to. Yes, that's a good word. All right. So I can't see any. I see a comment on Facebook. All right. Yes, amen. I see you, Tanya. So we have to be willing to take responsibility for our healing, but we also have to trust the process. So Joseph said, I truly understand. Self-reflection is hard, but what is needed? So Fine Bear says, do you take insurance? Actually, as a therapist, I am not practicing. I have 2 final therapy clients, and after that, I'm done. As a coach, I do not, and as a therapist, I do not. I do not take insurance. There are a variety of reasons why I don't, but mostly because them insurance companies, y'all, they make it hard out here for a pimp. I have I've done free therapy before I've taken before I've taken insurance. Starting healing process, 51 years, divorcing after 30 years, you are a blessing. Hey, Jay Barry, that's my story too. And here's the thing I want to say about the healing process. Here's what I want to say about the healing process. The healing process is not a time thing. You can't just be like, you know what, I'm going to give it time. There's a lot to untangle as you begin to come to grips with what you've allowed, what you've done, how you betrayed yourself, how others might have betrayed you, all of those things that start to hit you. And the thing is, people do this, they do this superficial healing, right? This superficial healing that looks good. Like, I'm going to go to Bali for a week. I'm going to go hang. I'm going to go do these things. But you ain't really done any of the internal work. Healing is inside out. And too many people are trying to do this thing from the outside in. And outside in, some of that thing, you know what it is? It's not healing. It's avoidance. It's avoidance. And so I knew I needed to lean into the healing. Did that shit hurt? Yes. Was I on my face crying? Yes. Was I questioning whether or not it would be easier to just go back? Yes. Was the healing worth it? Absolutely. Absolutely. At this point in my life at 52 years old, I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm at peace. I trust God more than I ever have. And it only came as a result of me doing the work. And so there are people who think that they don't need to do the work. As a therapist, right? As a therapist, as a coach, I know what the process looks like. I know that we can't get anywhere by avoiding the process. We can't get anywhere by avoiding the process. The blame game gets you nowhere. Absolutely, Joseph. The blame game gets you nowhere. You know what the blame game gets you? It gets you into victimhood. You become a perpetual victim. Speaking facts. Thank you, Cam. Okay, you're welcome. Germ Pip for Life says, "Wow, I totally agree with you. Thank you." So here's the thing that I want to encourage you all to do, because I named this. I titled this "Trust the Process." Sometimes the process does not look the way that you think it would look. I actually said this to a friend, right? So as a creative, like I'm a bit of a creative. And And I'll go back to my vision board. So I did this really dope vision board. I don't have it now because I left it in a place where I will never return back to, a physical place that I'll never return back to. And I remember when I started the board, some people have an idea of exactly what they want it to look like. And I posted it on all of these. I posted on IG, I posted it on Facebook. You can see it if you want to. But when I started, I had no idea what it was going to look like. I had no vision, no pre-vision for it. But what I've learned about myself is if I just trust the process, even if it looks really crappy in the midst of it, even if it looks like it makes no sense, that by the end, I'm going to love it. At the end, it's going to come together in the concrete things. And in terms of doing life the way that I do life, I recognize I have to trust the process. I have to trust the process, even when it doesn't look like it makes any sense, even when it doesn't feel good, even when it doesn't make sense to other people. I have to trust the process, understanding that the outcome, right? The outcome, even if it's not my outcome, but if God doesn't show up the way that I expect for him to show up, I have to detach from the outcome. When I started detaching from the outcomes in my life, it made it easy to show up. So let's say, for example, I showed up and I said, you know what, I'm going to go live after not going live. And I don't know, it's been 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I haven't gone live. I used to go live every day. If I set up and I say, I'm going to go live, and what I expect is that there's going to be 6,000 people on TikTok. There's going to be 200 people on Facebook. There's going to be 300 people on Instagram. And I get 3 people on each platform. Now I'm going to be disappointed, right? Now I'm going to be disappointed if I'm trusting my expectation. But if not, if I'm like, okay, God, you said you were going to elevate my voice, which is what God told me at the beginning earlier this year, that he was going to elevate my voice. God, you said you was going to elevate my voice, and there was only 3 people. I only had 10 people on each thing, right? If I'm attached to the outcome and only 3 people show up in each thing, now I'm disappointed. Now I'm mad. Now I'm like, okay, God, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. But because I have a but if not in me, because I have a but and not in the process, because I understand what that looks like, right? Because I understand that when I detach from my process, it allows me to do what it is that God called me to do. Because by showing up in this way, those 9 people who showed up, the one person who may need to hear that message may have gotten the message. And it may not be my business. I just have to do what I have to do. I just have to show up. And sometimes we are too attached to our own outcomes that it causes us to lose trust in the process without understanding that the process is not really ours. If we let go and let God, if we turn it over, but if not, if God doesn't do it the way that I do it, I still trust him. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Meek says, but God indeed. So let's see. So Fine Bear said, can I speak with you going through a divorce at 54? I don't know if you saw or heard, but I just opened up 3 additional coaching sessions on Friday. I typically have my schedule already booked, and I typically don't see anybody on Friday, but I opened up 3 spots. Once they're gone, they're gone. 3 spots on Friday. If you go to rondalestalk.com, you can schedule your consultation. You can schedule it's not really a consultation, it's really a coaching session. You can schedule your session with me. So feel free if you need that. Oops, sorry, TikTok. I didn't mean to do that to you. But everywhere I'm going to be moving to somebody else. All right. So yeah, so with that being said, but if not, so the note I have is even if it doesn't turn out how I anticipate, I still trust God. These are the notes I was writing to myself, and I have tons of them, y'all. I have more. These are the notes. This is what I was saying to myself when I was going through my healing process, when I was turning it over to God, when I was still like, "Ooh, God, I don't really understand why you have me in this season. I don't understand." This is when I was looking for fiery faith. Y'all see this? Y'all know the story, right? Shadrach, Meshach, and I keep laughing because I keep wanting to call them a big Negro, a Abednego, right? They were put into the furnace because the king was like, "Yo, you trying to bow down to your God? You supposed to be bowed down to me. You supposed to be listening to me." And they was like, "We're not gonna do it. We're not gonna be able to do it. We're not gonna be able to do it." And he said, "You know what? That's all fine and good. I'm gonna put you in that fiery furnace over there. I'm about to set you on fire." And they said, "You know what? We trusted our God that's going to pull us through this." And then they got to 3:18. We trust our God. We trust our God, the God that you want us to renounce, the God that you said has no power. We trust our God, and He's going to get us out of this some way. But if not, even if it doesn't turn out the way that we believe, we still trust Him. But if not, they put Him in a fiery furnace. And y'all know the story, right? They put Him. The fire was 7 times higher than it normally is, hotter than it normally is. And when they went to put them in, the guards who went to put them in, they burst into flames, right? The guards. And so as they're in there, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're in there. And the people on the outside, and they're looking in, it was like, yo, I thought we only put 3 people in there. But there's 4. And then they opened a door, and they came out. And you know what they said? They didn't even smell like smoke. That's trusting the process. That's trusting God. That's understanding that when you turn it over, you are turning it over to God, that He has His way. He has His way. And for me, what was happening was I was leaning so much on my way and trying to understand how I should do things that it was causing me anxiety. It was causing me anxiety because I didn't have faith in my ability to survive the furnace. Hear me when I say this. I didn't have enough faith. I didn't have faith in my ability to survive the furnace. Hey, girl. Hey, I see you. I did not have faith in my ability to survive the furnace. And because I didn't have faith in my ability to survive the furnace, I was putting that lack of faith on God. Y'all hear me? You hear me when I say, but it wasn't until I had a moment where I said, I'm turning it over. I'm turning it over. God, your will, have your will and not mine. But if not, I had to detach myself from the outcome. Some of you are in this healing process and you are so attached to your outcome, meaning how it looks for you. You are so attached to how it looks for you that you are losing trust in God because you have placed your trust in your ability to survive the furnace, not God's ability to take you through it. Come on now. Come on now. Yes, I'm Diva said I needed to hear this. Come on, girl. And this is why I show up, right? Showing up is not for me. It's not for me. I had other things to do. I was going to take a nap. And I can't be attached to the outcome. We can't be attached to the outcomes of what happens when we show up. We can't be attached to the outcomes of when we allow ourselves to heal out loud. I allowed myself to heal out loud. Now, you didn't see me when I was in my closet crying. Y'all didn't see that. But I'm sure going to tell you about it. I sure have the videos to document it. I can tell you that people say I don't look like what I've been through. I came through and I don't smell like smoke. Do you hear me when I say it? I came through the outside and I don't smell like smoke. And the only reason that I don't is because I put my faith and my trust in God, who was bigger and better than me through this process. Now, I have clients who don't believe in God, right? I have clients who say, what if I don't? And that's fine. But on your own power and leaning on what it is that you believe that it is for you to do, your healing is going to require something bigger than you. Nessa Sophia on IG said, a word, needed to hear this. Thanks, sis. And so what does it look like? What does it look like for you to lean into your healing in a way where you remove your perception of what healing looks like to you? Because for a lot of you, what healing looks like is a false perception. For some of you, healing looks like, I'm going to work harder. I'm going to go stronger. I'm going to be on the beach. I'm going to be taking my cute pictures. And don't look, I've been taking my cute pictures, but just know I'm taking my cute pictures and I have the healing to go along with it. The inner healing matches the outer healing. You cannot do this process from the outside in. It don't work like that. You're going to have to get dirty with it. You're going to have to lean into it. You're going to have to do some things that don't feel good. Yes, Lucas' son, the process of growth. You're going to have to get into some situations and some spaces where you go, I don't even know if this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I have a picture. I need to post that picture. I'll probably post it in my group. And I'm thinking about doing some other things. So y'all keep touch, because I know not everybody is keen on Facebook. So I'm thinking about another way that I can interact with the people. So Stay tuned because I'll probably be doing a Patreon group. I was thinking about OnlyFans, but I ain't got no demon time. I just tickled myself. You won't find it funny, but I'll likely post this picture because I have a picture. It's a still from a video where I was going through the healing process. And when I tell you it was ugly, it was ugly. It was something I never intended for anybody else to see. But I knew at some point, right? God said to me that my test, my mess, all the things that I was going through that was going to be beneficial for somebody else. And part of that includes showing you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right now, you seeing the good. You seeing that I am good. I am so good. But it ain't always been like this. It ain't always been like this. For those of you who are new to the story, like, yo, there were years where I was begging God to take me out, crying in the shower, Lord, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not built for this life. This thing you have me doing, I'm not equipped for. Take me out. There were times I wanted to take myself out. Come on now. Come on now. And going through the end of that process and staying in the fight and fighting and fighting and fighting and getting through the ugly parts and allowing myself to have an ugly part. See, here's what I know. A lot of us have not allowed ourselves to have that ugly part. Yes, I've been there. I know there's a lot of us, which is why I speak to it. This is why I speak publicly about it, which is why I speak publicly about it. Slices of Life said, do you help with grief therapy? I'm no longer taking therapy clients. Um, I don't do therapy clients. I can, if you go on my page, RhondaGipson-Willis.com, you'll see my link for resources, but it's kind of hidden. So it's at the top. It's like this little, how you can do another page and have some lines. It's kind of hard to find a second page. It has a link for resources. Um, um, it has a link for resources. And so it will show you some other links to therapists and different things like that. But I'm no longer doing active therapy. What I am doing is coaching. I do breakthrough coaching. It's different. It's different for me. Um, but yeah, so if someone else said they want to get in contact with me, I have 3 sessions, 3 time slots that I've made available on Friday. And if you could squeeze in on Thursday too, knock yourself out. But I'm offering 3 additional sessions this week, RhondaLet'sTalk.com. So someone says, my ugly part is me taking to my bed and not dragging unconcerned people into my chaos. Oh, so here's the thing. I want to speak to this because that sounds like you have the grace made sufficient. Oh, that's on my vision. That was on my mm, Lucas son. That was actually in the things I unfolded yesterday. I wrote out real big, his grace is sufficient. So thank you for that. So Callie Pally says, my ugly part is me taking to my bed and not dragging unconcerned people into my chaos. Here's what I know about this process of healing, right? You cannot heal. First of all, you cannot heal what you won't reveal, and you cannot heal by yourself. Yes to the shift. You cannot heal by yourself. You have to be willing to allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to allow other people into that process. But you also have to be discerning enough to know who are the right people to invite into that process, right? Who are the right people? Who are the right people? And I'll be honest. I've invited some of the wrong people into that process for longer than they should have been, but I've also allowed myself to be vulnerable, to be open, to be transparent, because I understand that's the only way to heal. Taking to your bed gives you more time alone. And I don't know about you all, but when I spend time alone in my messiness, sometimes I mess some things up because it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. And it's easy for us to consistently and continually convict and ourselves, right? My ugly part is unhealed men now irritate me real bad. Come on now, that's not an ugly part. That might be discernment right there, sis. She said unhealed men irritate her. Now here's the thing. I can have grace. I can have space for unhealed people, but I'm not allowing you into my environment. I was just talking to a dear friend of mine about, protecting the sanctity of your inner circleness, right? We have to protect that sanctity. And speaking of unhealed man, and IG is where It is really interesting because Instagram, these men's be coming at me, y'all. One of the men on Instagram said that I may as well just stay with my husband because I'm 50. Um, I'm going through menopause and ain't nobody gonna want me. Lies you tell, lies you tell, because the brothers that be coming through in the inbox now, that don't mean I want them, but I'm just saying I can have, if I want somebody, I can have somebody, trust and believe. And so that right there doesn't irritate me like these unhealed men. I look at them with a level of empathy because, right, like I got the whole therapy piece, but I might clown you for a little bit because I think it's hilarious some of the things that I'm seeing where you have a lot of unhealedness that's popping up. I had a woman who sent me this big long message about please go back to your husband. I'm like, sis, who you talking to, me or you? Like, yo, that's when you are healed, you don't, other people's stuff, it doesn't permeate. It doesn't permeate. Unhealedness allows other people's shit to come through your filter. But when you are healed, things like that don't permeate. And I have people who believe, I guess they believe because I bring it up, but I bring it up for demonstration purposes only. They believe that it's impacting me negatively. No, I think it's funny. So the unhealed men, they don't irritate me. They make me laugh a lot. And if you look on my TikToks, you'll see that I have some responses to some of them. But I also know that you don't get to come into my circle. You you don't get to come into my circle like, yo, unless you pay to come into my circle. Now, if you're an unhealed man who's looking for healness and you wanna have a consult, then that's one thing. But unhealed men who just want to heckle, no, sir. My ugly part is I'm the black sheep. I don't relate to my relatives. And your relatives might not always relate to you. And that's fine. We cannot pick our relatives. We are born into families, right? That doesn't mean that they automatically earn a place or a spot in your inner circle. Just right. And so just be discerning about who gets to go where. All right. In my solitude, that part, my circle is small. Identifying right people would take me into a rabbit hole. I don't do a lot of going back. I overthink, so my discard game is solid. I tell you what, I also covered that in my ebook, healebook.com. The link's in the bio, healebook.com. Really, it talks about that inner circle. The book is called I Don't Know Who Needs to Hear This, but I talk about I don't know who needs to hear this, but a lot in my Facebooks. And I did one called Healing Edition. 10 things you may need to know about your healing journey. I don't know who needs to hear this, but one of the things, several other things, couple of the things we talked about, the healing, what broke might not be your responsibility, but now the healing is, right? And also how to evaluate who to promote, who to demote, and who to fire from your life. Come on now. Promote, demote, and fire. There's your inner circle, then there's your next circle, and then there's your next circle. People need to be positioned correctly in your life, right? So let me see on IG. Alone time. Wait. Somebody keeps joining. Lucasson said, alone time and isolation are two very different things. Come on now. Alone time and isolation are two very different things, and people get it mixed up, right? People sometimes think, folks talk about being alone and then talk about being lonely. And here's the thing. You could be lonely in the course of a marriage. You could be lonely in a field of other people, but you can also be very fulfilled by yourself. Understand the isolation. Sometimes isolation feels like punishment, right? Because I remember there was a time where I had a lot of friendships that were ending. And it was so weird to me. Like I was like, God, what did I do? I had these friendships that were ending, but what I recognized was it was not punishment, it was protection. Come on now. It was protection. I was fighting some things that I shouldn't have been fighting. And it wasn't until I was able to spend time alone, right? I used to be that person who I would never go to a restaurant and eat by myself. I did not enjoy spending time by myself. I didn't know how to spend time with myself. It wasn't until I started to embrace my alone time that I really started liking who I was, that I saw that alone time was not isolation. I wasn't isolated. I wasn't, alone time wasn't punishment. It was me truly getting to know myself. And what happens is a lot of you haven't spent enough time by yourself to get to know yourself, that when you get with yourself, you don't recognize yourself. Lord have mercy. Somebody write that down. Somebody write that down. Somebody write that down. And so you have to be willing to do that. Yes. Yes, Trey Lovely. Lucas did say a word. Consideration. Whichever way I go, I'm going to be going somebody. Somebody said consideration on the solutions, not the problems. Exactly, exactly. Obedience to God is obedience to all. So I talk about that a lot. Right here, you see, it's not the outcome, faith and obedience. I said it's not the outcome, faith and obedience. It's not the outcome, faith and obedience. It's not the outcome. Don't be attached to the outcome or what it is that you're doing. When you're not attached to the outcome, then it's easy for you to just show up and do the things that you're supposed to do. But you can't. Oh, it's hard to do that when you don't when your vessel's not clean. So I did a Facebook thing a few weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, and I said, I don't know who needs to hear this, but you need to clean your vessel so God can use you. You need to clean your vessel. And oftentimes people think, oh, I need to eat right. No, you need to clear your ear hole, you need to clear your eye hole, you need to put your spiritual glasses on. You need to clean your vessel. You need to clean it of selfishness. You need to clean it of unforgiveness. You need to clear it of hurt. You need to clear it of unhealedness. You need to clear it of anger. You need to clear it from all of the things that you are using to that. All of the things that are using you that allow you not to be used. You have to clear it. You're built to show up in a different way, and you can't show up if you are harboring those things. And so for me, like healing allowed me to be a better steward of the gifts that God gave me. Now, don't get it twisted. I was still showing up. I was still showing up. I was doing these videos. I was giving life to people. I was checking out so that the Holy Spirit checked in and y'all was getting what it was y'all needed to get from me. But now I'm checked in. I'm checked in and it looks different. It feels different, right? But I was still showing up in the process. And some of us feel like we have to be perfect to show up. You don't. You just have to be obedient. You have to be obedient, but you still have to do the work. So Ambassador for Christ said, how do you do that? How do I do what exactly? Yes, you're so right, Queen. Thank you. You're right, sister. So let me know what you're asking specifically, Ambassador. How do you do what? Let me tune on in. Hey, hey, hey. I don't know who you are, Facebook user, but hey. But yeah, so you have to be willing to invest in the vessel. How do you clean your vessel? Okay, so I'm glad you asked that question. So the first thing you do, you really have to get real with yourself. You have to get real with who you are, how you are, and how you're showing up, and what's triggering you, right? So our triggers are very oftentimes the indicator that we have some unhealedness. If you are finding yourself triggered, if you are not at peace, if you don't have wholeness, if you're not healedness, you have to go back and you have to do the work. So cleaning your vessel means one, identifying, and part of that identifying may include seeking out an objective person, right? An objective person who could be a therapist or a coach, right? Seeking them out to help you identify what are those things that are clogging up your vessel. Because sometimes we get in this space where we do something long enough, we forget that it's not how we should be. We have become that person for so long that we didn't realize that this is the thing that's getting in our way. We don't recognize how our blind spots are impacting us. And if you are my Facebook friend, you'll see that I just reshared a video that someone recorded of me speaking on a panel back in 2016. I don't even know how long ago that was because it feels like it was 2 years ago, but it was like 4, 5, 6 years ago, right? 2016, I was talking about how we have these blind spots and how to identify your blind spots. And part of it is you have to be willing to have people that you trust in your corner, right? Objective people who are able to say to you, yo, sis, this right here, this is an area right here that you might need to clean up because you might not understand how it's blocking you. You may not understand how when you do this thing, how it's impacting you. You might not understand how it's limiting you, but I can see it from the outside in. So allowing yourself to have an objective person in your and not yes man. Like you can have some friends who know you really well, but can still have objectivity with you. Have objectivity with yourself, but really lean into what's getting in the way of me showing up as my best self. Who are you not allowing yourself to forgive? When you are harboring unforgiveness, and I talked about that Actually, somebody asked that question on the main thread. Um, Somebody asked that question on the main thread, like, how do they let go of blame, something, and something else? And I said, oftentimes that is tied to unforgiveness. When I work with my clients, it's tied to unforgiveness. Either you're not willing to forgive them, or you're not willing to forgive yourself. And forgiveness, you got to take the parameters off of forgiveness. You got to take the, if they do this, then I'll forgive. You have to take the, when I stop seeing this behavior, then I'll forgive. And you just have to forgive. You have to offer forgiveness. So Callie said, I lost myself trying to adjust to country life. Honey, I'm city. I miss culture, diversion, options. You know what? And it's very easy to lose ourselves in certain seasons. And so really becoming a student of yourself, not only of who you are right now, but who you are evolving to be, right, will help you in the process. Ambassador for Christ said, yes, it is hard to find those kinds of people. It is, which is why there are people who do it professionally, which is why there are people like me who do it professionally, who can be that objective voice. And I'll say it again, I have 3 extra sessions that I'm offering up this weekend. I'm giving up my Friday. I typically don't give up my Friday. I mean, if you can get in on a Thursday, that'll be great too. I typically don't, but on this Friday, I've opened up some time so that if someone needs that, they can get on my schedule at rhondaletstalk.com. Um, SD Green said, thank God I have someone like that. I'm working on myself even as I'm listening to you right now. And it is, you're right, like it's important to identify who those people are. Who are the people who come in your life who can hold you accountable to when you are bullshitting? Like when you know, when you know you ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing, who are those people? Who do you allow to speak into you, right? Because I had people around me, but then there were people I was just like, no, I wasn't really listening in the way that I should have been listening to them, right? Forgiveness is so beneficial to your soul. Yes, Trey Lovely, is that Trey Lovely? So Lucas' son said, control over self is the first step towards growing knowledge. Exactly. We have to have a level of self-control because self-control really goes back to discipline. Please be clear vision. A person can only go as far as what they know. Come on now. Now I just said this to somebody else. I said a person without purpose, right? And purpose is really, what's the vision for your life? What's the reason that you exist? We are all part of God's masterpiece. Like he was very intentional about creating us. But sometimes we allow culture to tell us who we should be and how we should be and how they should use our gifts. And when we get disconnected from that, it's really difficult for us to know or to stay committed to what it is that we should do. And we start to minimize our gifts in ways that don't allow us to show up powerfully. Doesn't don't allow us to show up powerfully. And so what I would say is really make sure you understand and you know yourself. Thank God. Okay, so it is, yes, Mel, it is hard. How do you deal with a parent who is triggering and constantly brings out the bad in you? Ooh, Nola, that's a good question. A parent that is triggering. So here's the thing. How to distance yourself without the guilt. Ooh, so my first thing was going to say is not allowing guilt to keep you in situations that are not beneficial for you, right? Setting up healthy boundaries and saying, look, I love you, but I can't be in this space like you. If a parent is triggering you, right? And if it's a parent who doesn't want to trigger you, and they just happen to be doing it, it might be time for a conversation of, I don't know if you understand how when you do this, how it impacts me. Not that it's your intention, but there's a difference between intent and impact. I don't know if you understand how you're doing this impacts me, but this is how it impacts me, if they care. Now, if it's a parent who is not, they don't care how it impacts you, then you have to decide how much you're going to allow something that someone who doesn't care about the impact of what they say to you impacts you. Does that make sense? You have to be very intentional about that, about as a parent should want the best. A parent should talk to us in these certain ways. A parent should do these things. But if that parent doesn't have the capacity to do that, releasing them from that expectation. And when you release them from the expectation, you're also released from whether or not they do what it is that you need, right? Not everybody who is in our lives is equipped to support us or love us in the ways that we desire and that we need. Recognize that. Even a parent, because some of our parents are dealing with traumas and things that they never resolved. And because they never resolved them, they are passing them on to other generations. And I knew for me, right? I have 4 adult daughters, which I don't know if you guys saw the last TikTok that I just did with 2 of my daughters in it, where people have said to me that I'm hurting my daughters because I left my marriage. My daughters are fine. Like, I actually talk to my kids. I talk to my children. I have conversations like, you know what? If there are things that I'm doing right now that are impacting you negatively, let me know, because I don't want to be defensive about it. I don't want to be that mom that gets defensive and go, well, you just gonna have to adjust. I want to adjust, recognizing that they are 4 individual people and they each need different things from me. And if I'm not in a position to say, you know what, as your mom, let me give you what it is that you need, as opposed to you just adjust and I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I want to be able to um to help equip them so that they're not doing things that trigger their children, right? So that's what I would say. I would say the first thing about distancing yourself without the guilt is decide that you are not going to be a prisoner to guilt. Because, not everybody can love us the way that we need to be loved. And no matter who they are, whether you birthed them or whether they birthed you, not everybody can love us the way that we're meant to be loved. They can't take care of us the way that we need to be taken care of. And start really looking at and leaning into the places and the relationships where you are getting the support that you need. And with the rest, take it with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm not telling anybody to disrespect their parents. We should honor our parents, but also understand that when you're not getting what it is that you need, stop going to the wrong place to get the right thing. Stop going to the wrong place to get the right thing. Stop going to the wrong place to get the right thing. It will be like, okay, so this is how my mind works. So we know that McDonald's has Coke products, right? McDonald's notoriously has Coke products. And I want to say that Popeyes has Pepsi products. Now imagine if you want a Pepsi, but you show up at McDonald's every day, order a Pepsi, and then get pissed when they don't have Pepsi. When all you really need to do is go to Popeyes and get your Pepsi. That's what some of you are doing when you're going to the wrong people for the right thing. You can get your Pepsi. Your Pepsi exists. It's just not existing in the place that you're going for. Does that make sense? Sometimes I get these analogies and I get these pictures in my head and these things that don't seem like they're going to make sense, but I trust the process. I trust the process. I trust the process, and I know in the end it's going to make sense for somebody's going to be like, that's exactly, because I was planning on I was about to go to McDonald's today, and I was going to try to order me a Pepsi. You know who you are. Adjustment equals all parts moving, i.e. children, environmental, etc. Exactly. So, Sophia says, I experienced this in my relationship with my parents. Yeah, and it's like, we got to be real about our parents are people too. Like, when you can see your parents as people, like, I know there are people that you wouldn't be here if they didn't exist, but they're still people. When you can start seeing your parents as people, I'll never forget. Well, it happened during my healing process, right? I came upon a journal of my mother's. My mother died when she was 56. I came upon this journal that my mother wrote when she was 47 years old. And I was at the time 50. And I was like, yo, my mother was younger than me when she wrote this. And she was in such a place of pain, right? It was like this that none of us knew, like, because my mother was like this really, really tough. Like, I mean, she was a sweetheart, but she had this exterior of, don't fuck with me. Like, she was one of those, right? But reading in this journal helped me to see her in a different way. I was able to see her for who she truly was as a woman. And when you allow yourself to see your parents as people, instead of you're somebody who owes me something, whether that's peace, whether that's healing, whether that's whatever else, whether that's you owe me Coca-Cola when I need Pepsi, like whatever that is, when you start seeing them as people, it's easy. It's easy. So I have some more comments on IG. Lucas son, you own it. I've experienced with some people that most times complicated their own life. Yeah, most of us do. Most of us do complicate our own life, and we complicate our own life when we fear the process and we try to outwork God. Do not fear moving forward. Exactly, and do not fear staying where you're at. The parents stated that they preferred texting only, even though it was hard for me emotionally. And sometimes, people do what's best for them. So is there a happy medium? Is there something else that you can do? Is there a voice? Like, do you prefer to do a voice in a way that you can remove the voice? Is there a compromise? I use an app called Volley. I used to use an app called Voxer. And with Volley and Voxer, you can text messages to each other. You can do face-to-face messages with each other. Not face to face. You could do recorded messages. So say that your mom likes to text or your parent wants to text, they can text you and you can respond with a video. And they can watch your video and they can text you back, or you can respond with voice only. So I honored her request. Then she realized I no longer called her. She called and left a voicemail. So yeah, so understanding, what is it that you're looking for and how can you get? She wanted to call me sometimes. Yeah, sometimes, again, it's about what's your parameter, what worked for you, right? And how do you honor that? And how do you show up in a way where you allow people to meet the new you? She said, I was so confused. Sometimes people don't know what they want until they get what they thought they wanted. Does that make sense? Sometimes people think they want something until they get what they thought they wanted. And they're like, oh, this isn't the way I want to do that. And what it sounds like is you establish a boundary. And when you establish the boundary, she realigned. She realigned when you set up the boundary. The last forgotten language is that people have lost their very given choice to choose. So sad. All right. Yeah. And we all have choices. Even when I talk about obedience, right? Obedience to God and obedience to his will. Um, it's a choice. God gives us free will. But what I found is when I make choices that are in alignment with his will for my life, it works out a lot easier. It works out. I don't have to work so hard. And I turned it over, right? So anyway, I got a client I need to see. So I'm going to get off now. I just want to hop on real quick and share some things with you all. Yes, trusted your purpose to show up. Exactly. Trusted your purpose to show up. And even when it makes no sense to you, like, why am I hopping on live at noon? Like, nobody's going to be on this live. Why am I hopping on live? Trust it. I just trust the process. Be obedient, show up, do what it is you're meant to do. So, but trust the process. And then have you a healthy Daniel 3:18. But even if the expectation that I expect does not happen, I still trust God. I still trust where he's taking me. Ambassador for Christ said, it was so good talking to you. You too. I appreciate you showing up. Make sure you're following me. If you're not following me, I have a group for women, which I think I'm going to expand and do another group where men can go. And I'm going to take this group off of Facebook because it's on Facebook right now at shiftqueens.com. If you want to be invited to the other group, oh, thank you. You just found me today. I hope I was able to serve you in a meaningful way. But shiftqueens.com, that'll get you in my group. And once you get in that group, I'm going to start talking about something else that I'm doing that will allow people to connect with me in a different way. But going to shiftqueens.com will also get you on my mailing list. God is always talking. Who's really listening? Come on now. Come on now, Lucas. Lucas' son. God is always talking. And what happened is I've become more attuned at listening. I've become more obedient at listening to the things that God said. Another little Debbie, I just found you today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you're giving me a follow. For the new followers on TikTok, I appreciate you come through. I haven't been on TikTok much because IG is taking over. IG is taking my life. Ambassador for Christ, today was also your first time. Come through. I do once a month office hours in my private group at shiftqueens.com. And that's typically the second Monday of the month, and where I go in and I allow people to come on and I have one-on-one. So if that's something that you're interested in, come through shiftqueens.com. My assistant will let you in. You have to answer the questions. And then I'll be doing some other things too, where there'll be access to me. But if you're feeling like this is something that you need a one-on-one with me, keeping in mind that I am both a licensed therapist and a certified coach. I'm in a certified coach capacity here, but I'm a coach. And that I'm not just doing this for fun, right? I understand that this is part of my purpose. Go to rhondaletstalk.com and schedule your time with me. Okay. But appreciate you all. Pray I see you next go round. I'll probably come back in at another point. But with that said, appreciate you guys. See y'all again. Bye-bye. I'm ending Facebook now.